The 1970s were a golden age of experimentation in animation. Saturday morning TV became a playground where almost any idea could come to life, no matter how strange or risky it seemed. While legendary characters went on to become household names, many others quietly slipped through the cracks of television history. These forgotten creations were bold, bizarre, and sometimes downright confusing, yet they reflected a time when cartoons weren't afraid to try something new. From talking vehicles and musical monsters to unlikely heroes and oddball sidekicks, these characters once shared the screen with the greats before vanishing. Today, we're digging them back up. Here are 20 lost 1970s cartoon characters buried in TV history. Hong Kong Phooey, 1974. Hong Kong Phooey is a cartoon that turns heroism into pure accident. Penrod Pooch works as a quiet janitor at a police station, unnoticed and underestimated. But when danger appears, he transforms into Hong Kong Phooey, a kung fu crime fighter who barely knows what he's doing. He relies on a kung fu instruction book during fights, often stopping mid-battle to read the next move. Somehow, his clumsiness always leads to victory. Much of the real work is secretly done by his cat sidekick. The show works because it mocks martial arts tropes while delivering non-stop slapstick and chaos. Mr. Jaw, 1976. Mr. Jaw takes a terrifying predator and turns him into a complete joke. He's a blue shark who wears a hat, speaks dramatically, and spends every episode plotting to eat a single fish. His plans are always elaborate, involving traps, explosions, and cartoon logic, yet they never succeed. Instead of being scary, Mr. Jaw feels more like a desperate performer stuck in an endless routine. The underwater world is filled with exaggerated gags that feel closer to classic slapstick comedy than nature. His failures are the punchline, making him memorable not as a villain, but as a symbol of cartoon absurdity. Yogi's Space Race, 1978. Yogi's Space Race throws familiar cartoon characters into a galaxy-wide competition that makes almost no sense, and that's the fun of it. Each racer pilots a strange spacecraft packed with impractical gadgets that exist purely for chaos. The race is never really about winning, but about sabotaging rivals and surviving ridiculous obstacles. Alien planets, space traffic jams, and malfunctioning tech fill every episode. The show focuses on fast pacing and visual jokes rather than story depth. It feels like classic Hanna-Barbera energy multiplied by zero gravity, turning space exploration into a non-stop carnival of slapstick comedy. Inch-High Private Eye, 1973. Inch-High Private Eye centers on a detective who is only 1 inch tall but completely serious about his job. He dresses like a classic private investigator and insists on handling major cases despite his size. Everyday objects become massive dangers, turning rooms into obstacle courses. Inch-High is constantly mistaken for insects or lost in his surroundings, yet he never gives up. His confidence clashes hilariously with reality, creating endless visual humor. Logic is secondary to sight gags, but that's the charm. The show proves that a simple idea, when pushed far enough, can become consistently entertaining. The Banana Splits Adventure Hour, 1968 to 1970. The Banana Splits Adventure Hour feels more like controlled chaos than a traditional TV show. It mixes live-action animal costumes, animated segments, comedy sketches, and music with no clear structure. Bright colors and exaggerated performances dominate every scene. The characters sing cheerful songs, crack jokes, and introduce segments that seem to appear at random. The lack of order is part of the experience, creating a dreamlike flow that feels unpredictable. It's not about story or logic, but pure energy. The show captures a time when television experimentation mattered more than rules, making it unforgettable in its sheer weirdness. Wonderbug, 1976. Wonderbug follows 3 teenagers who discover an old dune buggy hiding magical powers. Once activated, the rusty vehicle transforms into a sleek, superpowered car with a personality of its own. Wonderbug doesn't speak, but his reactions and expressions give him charm. The stories are simple and revolve around chasing criminals, escaping danger, and outsmarting villains through luck rather than skill. Comedy drives everything. from exaggerated car stunts to bumbling enemies. The show blends superhero ideas with talking vehicle comedy, creating a lighthearted adventure that feels silly, colorful, and perfectly suited for Saturday morning television. Bailey's Comets, 1973. Bailey's Comets is less about racing and more about endless motion. The show follows a group of teenage roller skaters locked in a race that never seems to end. Each episode introduces new rival teams with strange themes, from prehistoric characters to supernatural beings. Winning rarely matters. The focus is on sabotage, slapstick accidents, and constant movement. The competition feels like a loop of chaos rather than a real contest. Characters are simple, but the creativity behind the rivals keeps things fresh. It's a cartoon built on speed, noise, and absurd ideas, perfectly matching the over-the-top style of the era. Goober and the Ghost Chasers, 1973. Goober and the Ghost Chasers blends mystery with a strange supernatural twist. Goober is a nervous dog who becomes invisible whenever he's frightened, which happens constantly. As a group of teen reporters investigates haunted locations, Goober's disappearing act turns every chase into confusion. Sometimes the ghosts are fake, sometimes they might not be. The show plays with uncertainty while keeping the tone light and comedic. Goober's panic-driven invisibility creates most of the humor. Though it follows the familiar mystery format, the invisible dog gimmick gives it a unique identity that separates it from similar cartoons of the time. The Roman Holidays, 1972. The Roman Holidays takes a modern family sitcom and places it in ancient Rome without changing much else. The Holiday family deals with work stress, parenting issues, and neighborhood problems, all while wearing togas. Roman life is treated like suburban America, complete with traffic jams, apartment living, and workplace drama. Historical accuracy is ignored in favor of visual jokes and puns. The humor comes from seeing modern problems dressed in ancient settings. While the concept follows a familiar formula, the strange blend of history and everyday life makes the show memorable, even if it never reached the popularity of similar series. Speed Buggy, 1973. Speed Buggy is a talking dune buggy with a nervous personality and endless loyalty. He travels with 3 human friends to races and events that always seem to involve sabotage or mystery. Speed Buggy stutters, panics, and overreacts, making him feel more emotional than heroic. His gadgets often malfunction, creating accidental solutions instead of planned victories. The show combines racing, mystery, and comedy, with Speed Buggy's reactions driving much of the humor. Rather than being fearless, he succeeds by staying determined despite fear. That vulnerability is what made him stand out among many talking cartoon vehicles of the time. CB Bears, 1977. CB Bears follows 3 smooth-talking bears who secretly solve crimes while posing as garbage collectors. Using CB radios, disguises, and their trusty trash truck, Hustle, Bump, and Boogie receive missions from a mysterious boss and stumble into strange cases. The fun comes from their clumsy teamwork and constant banter rather than clever detective work. Most plans go wrong before somehow working out in the end. The show leans heavily into disco-era slang and goofy chase scenes, making it feel very much of its time. It's ridiculous, noisy, and messy in a way that perfectly captures 1970s cartoon energy. Jana of the Jungle, 1978. Jana of the Jungle stands out as a rare action-driven heroine of 1970s animation. Raised in the jungle after being separated from her father, Jana grows up with a deep bond to animals and nature. She swings through trees, communicates with wildlife, and fights anyone threatening her rainforest home. Alongside her jaguar companion and a loyal ally, she faces poachers, villains, and ancient dangers. The series mixes adventure with environmental themes, giving it more purpose than many cartoons of the era. Its bold visuals and dramatic tone make it feel intense compared to lighter Saturday morning shows. The Groovy Ghoulies, 1970. The Groovy Ghoulies takes classic movie monsters and turns them into a musical comedy act. Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and the Wolfman, live together in a haunted mansion where every problem somehow leads to a song. The show is packed with non-stop jokes, exaggerated reactions, and psychedelic visuals. Musical numbers interrupt the story regularly, making each episode feel like a chaotic variety show. Instead of being spooky, the monsters are loud, friendly, and silly. The fast pace and constant wordplay give it an almost overwhelming energy, but that wild, noisy charm is exactly what makes the series unforgettable. Mumbly, 1976. Mumbly is a trench coat-wearing dog detective who almost never speaks. Instead, he communicates through grumbles, gestures, and a raspy, snickering laugh. Working under a loud, impatient commissioner, Mumbly solves crimes through silent observation and clever traps. The humor comes from his contrast with typical detectives. He's calm, sarcastic, and oddly confident despite the chaos around him. Episodes focus on slapstick chases and visual jokes rather than complex mysteries. Mumbly feels like a parody of noir detectives filtered through cartoon absurdity, proving that a character doesn't need dialogue to be memorable or effective. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids, 1973. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids blends pop music with secret agent adventures. The group appears to be a cheerful teenage band, but they secretly work as undercover operatives solving international crimes. Between missions, they perform catchy songs that feel straight out of 1970s pop culture. Their assignments come from a mysterious authority figure, sending them into dangerous situations filled with disguises and chases. The show mixes spy tropes with bubblegum music, creating a strange but entertaining hybrid. While the plots are simple, the combination of music and action gives the series a unique identity among cartoon mysteries. Rickety Rocket, 1979. Rickety Rocket stars a talking rocket ship that looks like it was built from leftover scrap metal. Piloted by a group of street-smart teens, Rickety is unreliable, noisy, and always one bolt away from falling apart. Despite this, he somehow manages interstellar travel while cracking jokes and arguing with the crew. The show combines space adventures with comedy, focusing more on personality clashes than serious sci-fi ideas. Rickety's clumsiness creates constant problems that drive each episode forward. The result is a fast-paced, chaotic cartoon that feels playful rather than futuristic, embracing humor over logic at every turn. The Funky Phantom, 1971. The Funky Phantom centers on a cowardly ghost from the American Revolution who accidentally joins a group of teenagers solving mysteries. Freed from an old mansion, the ghost agrees to help but spends most of his time panicking or hiding. Despite his fear, his ghostly powers occasionally come in handy. The show mixes historical elements with modern mystery solving, creating an odd but entertaining combination. The ghost's dramatic personality contrasts with the calm teens, fueling much of the humor. Rather than being scary, the series focuses on slapstick and confusion, making it feel like a playful twist on the mystery cartoon formula. Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch, 1974. Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch is a chase-based cartoon centered on a small red car constantly targeted by a gang of motorcycles. Wheelie never speaks, communicating only through beeps and visual signs, while the bikers shout and scheme endlessly. Each episode follows the same pattern of pursuit, sabotage, and eventual failure for the villains. The humor relies heavily on slapstick and repetition. The show feels like a vehicle-based version of classic chase cartoons, replacing animals with machines. While simple, its non-stop motion and exaggerated characters make it strangely hypnotic and unmistakably rooted in 1970s animation style. The Barkleys, 1972. The Barkleys turns a traditional family sitcom into a world populated entirely by dogs. The family deals with everyday problems like work stress, parenting, and teenage rebellion, all while barking, wearing clothes, and walking upright. The father is loud and stubborn, the mother patient and practical, and the kids face familiar growing pains. Dog-related puns fill every episode, blending humor with light social commentary. Despite the absurd premise, many situations feel relatable. The show uses animals as a mirror for human behavior, making it oddly grounded beneath its cartoon surface and one of the more unusual sitcom experiments of the era. The Super Globetrotters, 1979. The Super Globetrotters transforms famous basketball players into full-blown superheroes. Each member gains an exaggerated power, from stretching limbs to cloning themselves, all used to stop cartoon villains. Basketball skills mix with superhero antics, creating a strange blend of sports and fantasy. The action is fast, colorful, and intentionally ridiculous. Villains are over the top and rarely threatening, making every conflict feel playful. The show prioritizes fun over logic, using superpowers as excuses for visual gags. It's a perfect example of late 70s cartoons pushing familiar names into unexpected directions just to see what chaos would happen. These weren't just forgotten shows. They were snapshots of a time when animation had no rules and creativity ran wild. Some of these characters were strange experiments. Others were ahead of their time, and a few were so bizarre they almost feel like something you imagined rather than watched. Yet each one helped shape the anything-goes spirit of 1970s television. How many of these do you actually remember, and which one deserves a second chance? Let us know in the comments, and if you love uncovering forgotten TV history, stick around, because there are plenty more strange cartoons waiting to be rediscovered.